Hey y'all, my name is Luke. I make bags from high performance materials that would otherwise be discarded. And today I'm back on the boat project. Just wanted to give y'all an update about what I've been up to over the last few months. Over the winter, got a diesel heater in there that helps cure the resin faster. And working on the cockpit and underneath where the engine compartment is. So first of all, we're back in the cockpit here looking at the forward bulkhead. It's probably strong enough. I just wanted to get another layer of biax across the whole thing, and then a couple of strong carbon fiber ribs, one to hold the cockpit floor on, that'll just make it easier to put the cockpit floor in place when we're ready for that, and then just some reinforcement along the bottom. And the idea is just to make this as strong as possible for attaching things like autopilots and that kind of stuff. So just making it a tiny bit beefier. And here is some fairing action on the rudder. Got this pretty fair. It's just about ready for an epoxy barrier coat now. And here's my first attempt at figuring out how to glass in a gutter on the inside of a hatch. So the idea is to have engine access from as many angles and as much space as possible. And this is me trying to figure out how to make those openings to engine access as clean as possible, and especially for the one that's in the shower, with a channel for a gasket to make sure that it's fully waterproof. So the first couple attempts weren't so good, and started learning that just how to make molds, because you got to think upside down, inside out, backwards kind of thing, and it just took my brain a few attempts to figure out the right size to make it. And yeah, but moving on to the stern here, got to cut away a little bit so that I could do my best to match the curve on the stern of the boat. So it's three-dimensionally curved, so it's horizontally and vertically, so a compound curve, and Tom was suggesting the best way to match that curve would be to make a form from the outside. So there are these 2x4s on the outside of that plywood I'm cutting right now that I cut and shaped to different sizes along the vertical and horizontal planes, and just trying to match that nice curve that the boat has on the outside. So here I'm cutting out some Divinycell foam core. I'm using this for the hatches here, like I'm putting the angle on them for these access panel doors. This will just make sure that they fit into their openings nice and snug, but also don't get caught in there. So just trying to make these pieces as square as possible, and then ripping some spare fur I had laying around, some MDF to make some molds for these. So once I figured the best way to do these would be to ask Tom how he would do them, made these molds for them to sit in once I'd made the doors, so that I'll just squish these pieces of foam inside these molds and compress them, so we'll get a nice, dimensionally stable, lightweight, but really strong and stiff little piece of foam fiberglass sandwich. This one's got some shape to it, so it's a little different than the others, but that's for the port side of the boat, and that's where our berth is. So here we're looking at it from the technical compartment, and there's me on the weird side, and for some reason I thought it'd be a good idea to make around the propeller shaft snug, and then I'm an idiot, and yeah, he needs space for shaft seal. With any leftover fairing compound that I had left from the rudder, I would work on the back of those bulkheads. So the better I prepare these molds, the better the doors are going to come out. So I did try to get everything sealed up and sanded down to decent. You know, it's not going to be a mirror finished kind of mold, but it's going to be good. And here I'm getting all the pieces of foam shaped to the right sizes to fit on this side of the stern there, so I just want to get them wedged in. Once I got it sanded down nicely enough, I got some gel coat in the paint gun and went ahead and sprayed some gel coat. I'm not very good at spraying gel coat yet, so this is only my second time. So hopefully I'll get better soon. I think I just don't get the mixture quite perfect or something. Anyway, I'm rolling out some carbon fiber twill here to make a panel. So my thought is to make one side of the sandwich on the bench where it's easier to work, and then glue that into place on the boat, and then glass the second side of it there in place. So here's the little pillar for the stern, and you can see the boat barn in the background there. And once that gel coat was dry, got some PVA release agent loaded into the paint gun and got that sprayed on all the surfaces of what I was planning to do a layup on. So get that dry with the heat gun works well. I also have that diesel heater hooked up to a duct now, so I can really direct some heat where I want it. So I've been using that. So here I am starting the layup on these doors, these access panels, starting with peel ply and then a bunch of 6-ounce glass and foam, and then more 6-ounce glass on top of that. 10-ounce might have been best for this because it goes around curves just fine, and I could have done it with fewer layers. But the reason that I've been using 6-ounce and a lot of carbon fiber is because through making bags I'm able to trade batches of backpacks and duffels with the manufacturer that makes this fabric. They also make bag fabric, so for their traveling sales teams or whoever, it's really cool for them to be able to go around and show off the fabric that they make. And for me it's a good deal because I can make bags and I don't have to pay, because carbon fiber is crazy expensive. So yeah, don't get the wrong idea that I'm just rolling in the dough over here and buying carbon fiber willy-nilly. It's all thanks to this company that I work with on the bag front. Here I am demolding these parts. It's not real pretty. The molds themselves are pretty basic. They're just intended to be used once, and so they kind of get demolished once the part comes out. And that's okay, because these are just one-off parts. I'm not aiming to produce, you know, glossy mirror finish, perfect parts out of the mold in this case. So it's a good learning process for me, and I think they came out okay. You know, I sanded them down and they feel nice and rigid and just solid. So Tom's process for doing this is to put this sheet wax, which rubs on and you can kind of trim it pretty nicely. It's pretty satisfying to work with. You put that on the outside perimeter, the rim of the door, and that will create the space that the paint will eventually take up. So Tom also suggested I cut out that big old piece that I had into a bunch of little cubes to conform to the shape better. So got that all prepped and ready to go. But after the sealing stuff I sprayed on these dried, I got some wax on top of it, some PVA, because you really don't want the lip that we're going to make, the gutter, the hatch opening itself, to stick to the door, right? So we just want to make sure that that's all nice and sprayed down, waxed, so that this part that I'm glassing on, laying down right now, will have that opening for paint, but it'll be a flush door opening is the idea. So once that was dry, I was able to just peel them off this melamine surface because I had sprayed some PVA on that as well. And once that is all dry, you can take it apart. But to make the gutter one first, I wanted to make sure this one was super strong. I eventually added the same kind of strength to the others as well, but I added some oriented strands of carbon fiber in this one to make sure that it will not move. So getting ready to do the layup on the back here, and this was where my struggle fest started, because a smarter person would have asked somebody who knows or looked it up on YouTube about how to do overhead upside down kind of stuff with big pieces of fiberglass, so it's just hard to hold up and get it to stick long enough that you can like keep going. So I was struggling for a while there, using some expletives, until I finally just figured out, oh yeah, just use a stick to hold it up while you squeegee it onto the resin you already have on the surface, and that'll make sure that gravity doesn't just keep defeating me at every turn. So once I figured that out, I got, you know, a little stick that was about the right length to hold the layer of biax up after the 6 ounce, so that it would be in place long enough for me to squeegee the resin through the fabric and get it to stick there. Even still, I got some not so great results on the top side that we'll see later. You'll see what I mean. So a bit of foreshadowing there. But anyway, once I got those layers on there, I went ahead and started getting some thickened resin on the foam side of all these little blocks to make this carbon fiber and foam puzzle. So that way it'll contour to the back of the boat to make sure that we keep those pretty lines. So once this back part had dried fully, I went ahead and got it ground down, getting it roughed up, making sure it's fully flat so that it's ready for the couple layers of carbon twill that I'm going to put on top of that. So once that was all clean, got some resin on there, and then these big pieces of carbon that will solidify the whole thing. And once that was done, it was okay to take the form that I had made, the mold, off the boat. So let's go ahead and get that unscrewed, and hopefully I did a good enough job of waxing it down and making sure that nothing sticks so that it comes apart. Now down below you can see how I tabbed in the back side of all these hatches that we put in earlier. So my next thing to make in the cockpit here would be the step that goes from that surface right there that my square is laying on up to the cockpit floor. So our goal is to have a nice big swim platform on the back of the boat with electric actuators on it, and you'll be able to step from the swim platform to that transom, and then on using this step that I'm making the mold for right now onto the cockpit floor. I had a couple different ideas about how to connect these two together, but in the end I just kept it simple. Probably would have been good to get the whole thing 3D scanned and then iterate on Fusion or whatever, but I just kind of did it hands-on for this part too. But once that was all put together and was the right shape to fit into place, I got some sealant on there, got some wax, some PVA, and started the layup. So did 4 layers of carbon twill on this, so it's super sturdy, and I wanted to get as much pressure on all these parts as possible, so I got some clamps and some pieces of melamine, and yeah, jammed it up, made that step. So while that was curing, I went ahead and started filling in this missing section of the coaming here, a few pieces of carbon twill, and then a piece of foam with carbon on it that I already had from before, and got some good squeezing on this one because it was just in a good place that I could get clamps in and really squish it down. Once the step was all cured, I went ahead and pulled it out of there, got it sanded down, and moment of truth, I was hoping that it would fit in place, and it did dry fit into place, so I figured let's just go for it. Got some vinyl ester on there and then some thickened vinyl ester as well, and got it squished and clamped into place. So there we go. Step up to the cockpit is roughed in. So anyway, that's it for today. Thanks so much for watching. I've got some more stuff that I'm working on editing now, so trying to make these boat updates a little more regular. And the designer of this boat's been watching a couple of the videos, which I really appreciate. Super nice guy, and he's given me some great tips that I'll be working on and making sure to document that too. So thanks again.